Surviving Reality contains explicit content full of snark and sarcasm that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Surviving Reality.
I'm Corey.
And I'm Carly, and we are back continuing to dabble in the space of true crime while we wait for the return of Welcome to Plathville.
Should be starting up at the end of July. Well, further towards the end of July, I suppose. What was that date? July 22nd?
26th?
20-something?
Something like that. We'll let you know as it gets closer. For now, it's
more than a month away.
So far out of here. Who has the bandwidth to think of that?
It's a lifetime away at this point. We're not worried about it, but we'll get there eventually. So we're perusing. We made the mistake of mentioning the staircase at some point that we are Owl Theory fans, and so people were asking for sort of a deeper exploration into that. So just as a high-level overview and understanding of what this episode's about, we're not going to be recapping the Staircase series in its entirety here. We have seen it, we've watched it, we've experienced it, but this episode is specifically going to be diving into the explanation of the Owl Theory. There are still people who completely deny the existence of the Owl Theory.
They think it's ridiculous.
They will not entertain it at all. So we're here to change some minds and open up a fresh set of eyes into Owl Theory for the Staircase specifically.
We're not going to get into everything that the prosecution presented, and I'm going to say it up front. You guys know how I am with wildlife. I can't identify a lot of animals out there, and I believe that owls and many other birds can be bloodthirsty killers.
What? All right, so Carly might be...
That's my stance.
Well, Carly might be more into the Owl Theory than I am, I guess, based
I'm the
off
juror
of
that they needed that day.
Okay. Well, so I think that's part of the issue here is that as part of the original documentary, quick overview of that, Michael Peterson... He's the main character. I don't like to say that, though, for true crime stuff.
He's the main character of this murder.
Because Kathleen is the main character. She's the victim here.
I think the victim gets to be the main character.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would be the more respectful way to talk about it. So, shame on us. So Michael was a novelist, former newspaper columnist in Durham, North Carolina. Remember that. That's going to be very important for Carly's defense case here.
Location.
That's all about location. So Michael Peterson called 911 on December 9th, 2001 to report that his wife, Kathleen, had fallen down the stairs. Always be careful what you say in the 911 call. They are recording those. Don't make a claim on what happened if you don't actually know what happened. Say, I don't know. I came in. I found her at the bottom of the stairs.
Probably best to be panicked and confused about what is actually going on, and to be more focused on administering emergency services.
Right. So that's what he had reported initially there. He claimed that Kathleen was drunk. She must have slipped. There was a fall that took place in the staircase here at the stairs. Where else would it be? When the first responders arrived, they found Kathleen unconscious, barely breathing, and bleeding heavily at the bottom of the narrow staircase in the couple's home. She was pronounced dead shortly after. Investigators became very suspicious, as was I at the end of the first episode when they showed the crime scene photographs, and you see the amount of blood at the scene. You think there was some sort of a dispute here. There was an altercation. There was something physically that took place. This wasn't just Kathleen who fell down the stairs.
It's a bloodbath in the hallway.
A bloodbath is what it is indeed, Carly.
I'm getting so excited about getting to the owl that I'm tripping over my words.
I guess so. So yeah, we're not going to focus on the prosecution, the evidence that was presented as part of the documentary necessarily. We're going to go outside the bounds of that and bring to you all the things that they weren't able to present as part of the Owl Theory. Main issue because Owl Theory came up way too late. They were already in the middle of arguing the defense, and the trial was already happening.
Yeah, Michael Peterson needed to get his money back because this theory came from a neighbor who was also an attorney. His name was Larry.
Leave it to Larry.
And Larry pointed out that there are barred owls in the area, and Kathleen had injuries that were perhaps consistent with having been attacked by one.
Barred owls being Barred, not barred Bard, because I play D&D and that's what came to mind first. So when I heard everybody talking about barred owls, I thought
is a barred owl a thing in the game or just bard?
An owl bear is a thing in D&D, but a bard is a class of a type of character that you can play in D&D.
I'm assuming that sings music?
Yes, exactly.
Thank you. That's a little...
Musical prowess is one of the schools of barddom.
Your neurodivergence meets mine. That's a little tutor fact for you.
Okay.
Now let's get into the owls. So the supporting evidence for the owl theory is that there were microscopic, tiny owl feathers and cedar needles found entwined in Kathleen's hair. Very suspicious. Why is that there? We are being led to believe that she was beat with a blunt object by Michael Peterson indoors. And yet she has outdoor things in her hair.
Outdoor things. This is the biggest issue that I have with the prosecution's case, is when they allege to a bludgeoning of what took place. Because then I think they're trying to say, what was it, the blowgun? The blow dart? What was it?
I'm sorry.
Do you remember this thing?
The fireplace tool?
Was that it?
It was not a blow dart.
No, I thought it was that's the fire poker. No, there was like a blow gun, a blow dart gun.
Stop it.
Remember this?
You need to ask, is that a correct fact? It's been a long time. I'm pretty sure they did not have... What are they taking down elephants? What are you talking about?
Yeah, and then it was just missing. They couldn't find it, and then they did find it out in the garage. It wasn't a fire poker. Was it a fireplace thing?
No evidence of blow darts.
No, it's not the blow dart. It's the gun that
blow
you
poke.
use. A blow
there
poke.
There were people screaming at the top of their lungs.
There you go. Blow poke.
Guys, we never claimed to be a true crime podcast.
Definitely aren't. Yeah, we do reality TV. This is just something else that kind of comes along with reality.
So, right. But so the theory is that he used that, which was convenient when they couldn't find a murder weapon until the 11th hour. And then they found an object that fit what they decided the murder weapon was. She didn't have any skull fractures.
That's the part that gets me the most, is that she had scratches, deep wounds, 7 wounds, but no skull fracture or brain injury that was evident at all as part of the autopsy. Multiple lacerations on the scalp, but no evidence of blunt force trauma necessarily.
So were those lacerations possibly the result of owl talons? Talon marks?
Raptor claws. That's what we're getting at here. Setting the scene, though, because looking at the crime scene photos, I think a lot of people lose interest in the owl theory very quickly because their understanding of the suggestion of the owl theory means to imply that an owl got into the house and attacked Kathleen in the stairwell.
That's ridiculous.
That is absurd.
I don't even argue that happened.
And we don't even try to take that stance.
I don't ascribe to that. The bird stayed outdoors the whole time.
The bird was outside. So this is the issue, is that a lot of people place the inciting incidents of what took place in the case of the staircase at the staircase.
Well, they're assuming that the crime started and ended either in the staircase or within close proximity to it.
But there are other elements here. So I think from a timeline standpoint here, the key part of the owl theory is that the initial attack took place outside, out in the front yard.
Which is consistent with the fact that there was some blood on the door and a couple of drops outside by the stoop of the door.
There were very tiny, because it's hard to explain if you're looking at it from a murder perspective, or why is there less blood in the front of the house if someone's covered in blood? So if it was, people are saying if it was Michael, who after the fact, if he was going out to direct the first responders into the house or anything like that, if there was a transfer of that. But I think it was just the initial strike, the owl attack that took place outside. Kathleen had no idea what was going on. And then with a head injury, she had been drinking that evening too. So a head injury, you have scratches, severe scratches down the back of your head. You are now bleeding profusely from your head, but you don't really even know necessarily if that's what's happening. It has to soak through her hair, or if she's grabbing the back of her head, you're getting blood all over your hand.
It's plausible that if she had been attacked from behind by an owl outdoors, she would have run into the house, and that she likely wouldn't have been bleeding that heavily initially. But maybe by the time she got into the staircase and up the stairs, things escalated.
Then that's where parts of the defense case then of she was drunk, she was wearing flip-flops, it's a very poorly lit staircase, she was trying to go upstairs, so as part of taking that turn, if her blood pressure spiked or something, and then she did fall. So if she already had the scrapes and scratches on her head, and then she fell as part of the staircase evidence that we have at the crime scene, that kind of tracks a little bit more with what we're seeing from the photographs and the results of where Kathleen was found and what circumstances we found her in.
Let's talk about the owls. We talked about location, that they're in Durham, North Carolina. This is particularly important because there are two common species of owls in the area. There's the barred owl, which we already talked about, and the great horned owl.
Carly, animal facts coming at you.
And I don't know a lot about animals and different species, but I do know that owls are active at night.
They tend to be, yes.
She was attacked in the late hours of the night. We will get more into it. But, they're out. They're around. They're in the area.
There's a ton of
spottings of owls in this suburban setting.
Well, and especially their house, they have a bunch of trees in their front yard. There is a large wooded area that surrounds the house.
Also, this happened in 2001, so I did some investigation because something that could increase the aggressiveness of owl populations is if they have been displaced. And there was a lot of residential expansion in that area during that time frame where they're knocking. You are surprised. You're like,
well, that's big. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had heard about the being protective during, I think it was like during mating season or during nesting season. There's like a specific time of year, which this falls exactly in line with that as well. December would be around that time.
I got more historical context for you. So we've got possibly their environments being invaded by suburban sprawl and them being displaced, which would make anybody angry. Then there was Hurricane Floyd in 1999, which affected the area, which can also disrupt food sources for a period of time.
So you have a hangry, displaced barred owl that we're setting the scene here.
Could be. Could be.
Is it reason enough to take out their frustrations on poor hapless Kathleen? Because the other element here, I think Michael had said something about Kathleen needed to run out to the mailbox or she was dropping something off at the mailbox. So if that's at the end of their driveway and then she's trying to get back into the house, if it's cold, I think it was colder that evening too. It was in December. She was just in her sweatpants and a t-shirt. So if she didn't have a jacket or an outer layer on, if it was a little bit chilly and she was trying to get back to the house a little bit quicker, she might have tried to pick up the pace. That becomes an aggressor in the eyes of an owl.
Thank you for bringing that up because there had been many documented owl attacks in the area, and it's important to point out that the people affected were mostly joggers or people outdoors at night.
It's people running, and specifically people running at night, which that would absolutely be the case, or plausibly could be the case for Kathleen in this specific circumstance.
The injuries that were seen in people who were attacked by owls in the area were 3 to 4 inch lacerations, concussions from having fallen, and in rarer cases, they lost so much blood and had head trauma that they had to go to the emergency room. However, no confirmed fatalities from these owl attacks.
Which that makes it hard to build a legal defense around, because if it's never
all you
been...
have to prove is that it
Right.
could
It
have
could.
happened.
It could have. But I think that is hard. That sets a difficult precedent where you can't just point to it and say, hey, here's a common thing that other people have passed away from. This is an entirely new scenario where you're saying Kathleen is the first documented person to die from an owl encounter in North Carolina. But I would argue
it's not directly the owl attack.
not the attack. It's the subsequent injuries from that encounter with a wild animal.
They're silent killers, too. They're known, the barred owl, for their stealthiness. And most of these attacks happen from behind, where people don't know.
Well, that's how
they're even going to be attacked by an owl.
The pattern, and that would add to it's the confusion. Kathleen has no idea what's going on. If she's dropping something off of the mailbox or grabbing something from the mailbox, I think she was dropping something off because then she didn't have anything. Did they find mail in the front yard? If anything, that's only going to help the theory. So I'm not that well versed in the facts of the case. So
the jurors have questions.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to need to see front yard photographs and if anything else was recovered at the scene there. But if she was coming back into the house from dropping something off at the mailbox and she is then attacked from behind in a swooping manner from this enraged, displaced, hangry barred owl during
who also is looking to mate.
Yeah, heightened aggression during mating season, nesting season, and takes this as a threat, strikes her in the back of the head. The feathers, that's the other hard part too, is because it's like the microscopic owl feathers in her hair and on her hands, which means that's kind of a defensive wound or like a defensive evidence of defense that was taking place there, because I think it was if it swooped and hit her the one time, knocking her down, and then it continued to do that, if it had one or two passes at her, that would be enough to cause 7 lacerations on the back of her head.
How many talons do they have? Is each finger a talon?
So I think they have 4. It's like 3 that kind of extend out, and then 1 that's kind of a loop around.
So you could have gotten multiple lacerations in one strike.
Yeah, definitely. They got 2 feet.
This bird had good aim.
So I'm just saying, like, from that, I think that adds to the confusion of she has no idea what's going on. She's trying to get back into the house as quickly as possible. If she is holding the back of her head, because obviously there's some sort of trauma that's been inflicted there, she now has blood on her hand. She goes to close the door, and then she's realizing, I'm bleeding. I need to go upstairs and assess the situation here. She takes the stairs, makes that turn. Blood pressure spikes. She has a fall.
She's got flip-flops on. She's a little bit older. It's a poorly lit stairwell. It's a recipe
for an accident.
An accident.
Well, I mean, because at that point it becomes that's the issue that we have. Because then
I would say the owl murdered her, but okay.
Well, not murder. I don't think there was malice in the owl's heart necessarily, except for suburban sprawl, obviously. Gentrification more than anything. But I think this is where people have an issue with this too of, I don't think they realize how quick the owl attack could happen, because Michael was out in the backyard, but this is a pretty big house too. And then also he was by the pool. I think they had like a fountain, like a water feature. So there was some kind of like noise dampening or suppression that was going on there, because he wouldn't be able to hear if Kathleen was screaming or if she had a big reaction out in the front yard. I don't know if he necessarily would be able to hear it from where he was in the backyard. But also, I don't think Kathleen was in a fist fight with an owl in the front yard. I think this bird swooped in on her once, maybe twice, knocked her to the ground, caught her off guard, and then sent her scrambling back into the house as quick as possible. So there wasn't really a lot of time for her to react or even understand what was going on.
No, you're in a panic. You don't know what just happened. What were you attacked by? Are you bleeding?
What hit me? Why did I fall over?
Yeah. Well, that's a common thing with these owl attacks, is people don't know exactly what happened to them initially. Would you like to hear about documented owl attacks in North Carolina?
I'm sure you have a couple of different reasons.
I have quite a number of them. 2018. Greensboro, a great horned owl. At least 3 runners were attacked. near Northern Shores Lane and Flagship Cove. Victims reported the owl swooping down and causing minor injuries in that case.
But this is 2018?
Yeah, it gave me like more recent attacks.
Oh, okay.
It seems that in the area there's an interest in documenting owl attacks.
Now, subsequently.
Yeah, very interesting. 2008, 2 men were attacked multiple times outside their office on U.S. Highway 64. Surveillance footage captured the owl swooping down and striking them. Charlotte, 2023. Residents reported an aggressive owl attacking joggers and walkers near Lyndhurst and East Worthington Avenues. One individual sustained scratches on the head. Chapel Hill, 2023. Barred owl. A neighborhood reported multiple attacks by an owl named Owl Capone.
Whoa. That's offensive.
At least 9 individuals experienced the owl swooping down and making contact primarily during early morning or evening hours.
What's crazy is they weren't able to catch Owl Capone on murder charges or assault or anything like that. They actually got him for tax evasion.
Behind bars. Where he belongs. There's more. A chihuahua was fatally attacked.
No!
That one made me the saddest.
Why would you even bring that up? This is terrible.
Well, because it is actually a murder.
Okay. I'll give you that. Yeah, fair.
So this may be less unlikely than people initially believe.
The defense's case where the accident took place, because I think this is the issue with most of what happened with the defense on the staircase, is that the prosecution said the crime took place at the base of the stairs. And then the defense then was countering that of, I think there was an accident that took place in the stairs, and then they had to go and explain it like that. That doesn't explain the huge lacerations on the back of the head. So I think that this is a missing piece. The owl theory is the missing component to the defense's case that would lend enough credence or cause enough of a change for doubt to sort of creep in.
That's
because
all
that
you
was
need.
Well, that was what was bothering
doubt.
me. Yeah, reasonable doubt, because that was what bothered me about the defense's case, was that they couldn't explain how did she have these huge scrapes down the back of her head with no other blunt force trauma injury sustained.
That is hard to believe, that if he was striking her in the back of the head with that weapon, number one, like you said, it didn't do the damage that you maybe would expect to see, especially for the number of blows it would take to create that many lacerations. She doesn't really have defensive wounds.
Could you replicate that? Yeah, like, can you hit a model?
Didn't they try to do that?
Like a watermelon?
In the documentary?
The blow poke broke, I think, was what happened when they were trying to do this.
They're like, they just don't make them like they used to.
Yeah, that must be it. This is a replica. It's not to scale.
Just when you look at the fact that most of these people who were attacked by owls, even though they didn't sustain the level of injury that Kathleen did, and again, we don't know that those injuries, like what originally came from the potential bird strike versus what resulted from tumbling down the stairs.
Yeah, and I think it's a mix. Like, most of the defense's case did make sense, because from the blood patterns that were at the base of the staircase there, it suggests that there was a long, drawn out, there was blood spatter, there was, if it was her flipping her hair. She was there
for a long period of time.
She was there for a while. So if that initial attack that happened outside, she had a little bit of blood on her hand, she closed the door, there's some other droplets that lead towards the staircase that are from outside. That's the initial point of incident, point of contact there, leading to the staircase. And then there's a ton of blood in there because she had an initial fall, maybe lost consciousness for a little bit. Now there's a bunch of blood all over her. She tries to get up again. Maybe she has another spike in blood pressure.
And horrified, most likely.
You're freaking out. You're terrified at that point. You have no idea what's going on, still have no idea what's going on. And so that could lead to multiple falls that are taking place here.
I think the other thing that's interesting about all of the attacks with the people who were outside or running when they were mauled by owls,
right,
is that they were disoriented after. And most of them sustained their injuries from losing their balance and falling to the ground, either from being struck by the bird initially or from just becoming disoriented when they stand back up and not knowing what happened. So even the whole question of how did she tumble down the stairs?
She's concussed.
There is evidence that this is not unusual behavior in response to an owl attack.
I still don't know how you can get microscopic owl feathers on your hand and in your hair if you're not being attacked by an owl. Like, you don't just accumulate those. Did they just sprinkle down from a tree or something? Like, she was out in the backyard with Michael for most of the evening prior to that. I don't think that makes sense of just a random occurrence. If you then pair it with, here's the injuries that were sustained, here's the resulting issues that she was dealing with of being dizzy, of falling over, and all these other complications that came from this, it leads me to believe that an owl was in direct contact with Kathleen at some point that evening.
In what capacity, we don't know.
Physical, I don't think it was a romantic encounter. But I'm not one to say. I can't assign that sort of intention to anything. That's for you to decide, dear listener.
This is what happens with urbanization. It can lead to more frequent encounters between owls and humans, and that increases the risks of attacks like this.
Most people aren't super willing to even consider or entertain the idea of the owl theory. Most people who are taking the staircase at face level and looking through the facts and looking at the evidence, I need to be completely honest and let you all know that I hate how much sense the owl theory makes personally, but it does make sense when you're looking at all of the other factors that are involved, all of the missing pieces to a couple of the other theories.
Well, and again, the defense doesn't have to prove what happened.
No.
They just have to present a theory that creates reasonable doubt.
Because what bothers me is that the prosecution kind of steered away, and this was in the documentary as well, less about what actually took place and made it more of a character trial of Michael in general, who is kind of a divisive character in and of itself, because Michael's not very likable too. And so I think then people got it into their heads where it was just Michael's bad. He did a bad thing. He's lying about everything else. And so it just kind of steered into this other direction that I wasn't prepared for, because I had to keep looking at, okay, what's the evidence? What is the scene? What are these issues that I'm having with the story that's being told as part of this interaction that took place? Because people will say Michael had blood on him. He had blood on his flip-flops and on his shorts, but no blood on his shirt. So then people would say, oh, he changed his shirt before they got there. There would have been so much blood.
Why not change the whole thing?
And if you're going to change, if you're going to change your shirt because they never found a shirt with blood on it that would have been covered in blood at that point.
Maybe an owl took it.
I don't think that's...
It's in an owl's nest somewhere.
I can't refute the claim because I don't have enough evidence against it. But what I'm saying is, if you never found a completely saturated attack shirt, why wouldn't he have changed the shorts and the flip-flops that he was wearing too? Because you never would have found those if he put them in the same place where he put the shirt.
And the weapon.
The blow dart. The blow poke. So
all
is it
excellent points.
So does it shoot darts?
No.
It doesn't shoot darts.
I believe the
but
purpose
it's a hollow
of it
tube, right?
is to provide oxygen into the fire to
you blow it.
Help it burn.
Okay. But could you shoot darts from it? I don't think we had any injuries that were conducive with a blow dart. No defensive wounds on Kathleen at all, actually, which is very common in owl attacks. There are no defensive wounds because you don't get a chance to defend yourself against an owl. They hit you in the back of the head, and there's not much you can do about it.
The defense rests. I say we give the owl the chair.
No.
No? You don't think so? In summary, be careful when you're outside of your home late at night, early hours of the morning, specifically during owl breeding season in early winter.
Don't run. Walk at a reasonable pace. Don't draw too much attention to yourself. And stop displacing owl habitats, I guess. Is that what we learned?
It all goes back to corporate greed. They drove this owl to murder.
I would like to say it's the first time that that's happened, but I can't definitively. So let us know your thoughts on the owl theory. Try to poke, but not bludgeon our theory here. good luck, because it's hard to make those sorts of injuries without leaving that kind of evidence behind.
Also, stay tuned because we're going to be dropping a recap of the Titan submersible doc that's going to be dropping on Netflix this week. I am very excited about that. If you thought this was slightly unhinged, wait till we start talking about that.
I think I have a lot to say about the Titan submersible.
And I'm kind of a Titanic expert.
Carly would have been susceptible to the marketing opportunities that were available with the Titan submersible.
I can't wait to talk about that. If I was a billionaire and I heard about this,
she would have bit.
I would have torn it.
Yeah.
Torn it?
Torn
it.
You would have torn that apart.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.